Well, joining me from Westminster is Niall Dickson, Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation. You won't be surprised by these numbers, Niall, but what do you think the solution is here?
Well, I think the solution is to, first of all, put more money into social care, because the pressures that you're seeing in hospitals and indeed in mental health trusts as well is a manifestation of a system which is not currently working. And that's largely because in social care they're not able to look after people, and because community services are not funded sufficiently in order to try and prevent people from becoming ill. So we've got more and more older people, we hear this all the time, but more and more older people with a range of different conditions who could be managed more effectively in the community, but especially during this cold weather time, many of them end up in hospital emergency departments, and then the kind of pressures that we're seeing. That means cancelled operations by those hospitals. That means, again, once those elderly people have been put right, as it were, they can't get them back into the community because there aren't places. So the system is clogged up and is under enormous pressure. I think that the worrying aspect of this is, although there has been some improvement, as was just said, in terms of the number of trusts in deficit, the fact is that trusts are having to make decisions at the moment, sometimes making non-recurrent savings, which means, in a way, the problem will reappear next year, and next year we're going to face even greater problems just when we want to try and transform the system.
So it really does come back to social care and where the divisions are between presumably council spending and government spending. You would say what? That the government had to ring-fence money specifically for social care? John Ashworth, who I just spoke to, said it's time to take it away from the business rate cuts and put it straight into that. Would you go a step further?
Well, certainly believe the method at which government chooses to fund is a matter for government and not for us to dictate. But I think the need in terms of social care funding is absolutely unanswerable. And if you go, even I was talking with a senior nurse in an emergency department a couple of weeks ago, and she said, you know, if I had more money, in spite of the kind of pressures we're under, I would spend it on social care, because that is why these people are coming in here, and it's also why elsewhere in the hospital we can't get patients home again.
Why do you think this remains politically unresolved? I mean, I remember Andy Burnham, nearly a decade ago, talking about the need for a cross-party solution to the social care crisis, as he called it then. It's not exactly a surprise, this, is it?
It's not a surprise, and indeed back in 2008 and 2009 I was at the King's Fund at that time, and then we talked about a social care system which was not coping well enough. Now the situation is considerably worse. There are something like 2 million elderly people in England who are not receiving any support at all, who should be being supported by the social care system. So the answer is it has never managed, irrespective of party, it's never managed to achieve that level of political traction in order to be able to try and get the funding in place. And what we're seeing now in the health service is a consequence of that underfunding.
Niall Dickson, thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Just a line of news coming in from Paris. We're just here.